Jim Bob Duggar and his wife snubbed by all kids in wake of milestone anniversary. Well, snubbed by all kids in wake of milestone anniversary. Jim Bob Duggar and MichelleDuggar celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary on July 21. But you'll be forgiven if you didn't know this. It's not as though a single member of their family made any sort of deal about it on social media or anything. Indeed, the polarizing parents of 19 kids did not receive a single well wish from any of these kids as far as we could tell. Not even Gianna Duggar acknowledged the occasion, despite seemingly being on perfectly strong terms with her mother and father. The 34-year-old no longer lives with them, however, which may be notable. The Duggars got married in 1984 and welcomed oldest son Josh 4 years later. He is now serving over a decade in prison, of course, after getting convicted on charges of child pornography possession. From what we've heard, Jim, Bob, and Michelle still visit Josh in jail, which doesn't exactly come as a surprise when you consider they helped cover up his molestation of a few of their daughters back in the day. Jim, Bob, and Michelle were also the target of an Amazon documentary last summer that homed in on the teachings of the church in which they raised their children. They didn't seem very happy about it at the time, either, publicly condemning the project in a statement that read as follows. The recent documentary that talks about our family is sad because in it we see the media and those with ill intentions hurting people we love. Like other families, ours too has experienced the joys and heartbreaks of life, just in a very public format. This documentary paints so much and so many in a derogatory and sensationalized way, because sadly that's the direction of entertainment these days. The documentary included an interview with Jill Duggar, whose parents concluded in response. We have always believed that the best chance to repair damaged relationships or to reconcile differences is through love in a private setting. We love every member of our family and will continue to do all we can to have a good relationship with each one. Through both the triumphs and the trials, we have clung to our faith all the more and discovered that through the love and grace of Jesus, we find strength, comfort, and purpose. The rifts in the Duggar family's once close-knit family are more apparent than ever as they celebrate Jim, Bob, and Michelle's 40th wedding anniversary. Tension has been centered on the adult children's poor relationships with their parents, which have been exacerbated by contentious religious rituals and recent scandals. Many of the children have expressed their frustrations through books, podcasts, and public demonstrations. Jim, Bob, and MichelleDuggar celebrated their 40 years of marriage. Fans of Duggars were shocked to hear that Jim, Bob, and Michelle were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary, but it didn't appear like their kids were congratulating them, at least not in public. Reddit users responded with notable vigor. A commenter joked that the milestone might have been forgotten by the kids, while another made light of it by calling it a dark day. The fact that none of the adult Duggar children shared anything on social media to celebrate their parents' special day caught observers off guard. This raised the possibility that the kids either didn't want to be openly involved in the celebration or had other obligations. Why there is a parental distance between the Duggar children. The adult children of the Duggar family have appeared to be growing more and more estranged from Jim, Bob, and Michelle, the couple's parents. This appears to be a result of both their contentious religious beliefs and major personal scandals. The Duggar family is well known for its unwavering devotion to the independent Baptist faith, which has had a significant impact on their way of life and parenting techniques. This includes strict guidelines for modesty, a focus on gender norms, and courtship rather than dating. For example, daughters are supposed to follow a modest clothing code that is consistent with their beliefs, wear long skirts and dresses, and refrain from wearing pants. The Duggar kids have frequently discussed how these guidelines influenced their childhood, and a few of them have even mentioned how these demands caused them to feel repressed and to experience conflict. A number of high-profile incidents involving Jim, Bob, and Michelle's oldest son, Josh Duggar, have further deepened the family's alienation. When Josh's previous mistreatment of his sisters was revealed in 2015, there was a big uproar. It came to light that Josh had acted inappropriately toward multiple sisters and a family friend when he was a teenager. This information not only damaged the family's reputation, but also brought into question how they handled the incident and the cover-up that followed. Josh Duggar's arrest and conviction for crimes against minors, particularly for possessing materials pertaining to child sexual abuse, in 2021 made matters worse. He received a sentence of more than 12 years in federal prison. His final attempt to overturn the conviction was recently unsuccessful. The Josh Duggar scandals and these religious regulations have caused a great deal of discord in the family. Many of the Duggar kids have chosen to keep their distance from their parents and the family's public persona in order to voice their unease and displeasure of their upbringing. Jill Duggar has publicly acknowledged that she no longer spends much time with her parents, indicating a difficult relationship that is probably caused by her public criticism of their behavior and her departure from the family's traditional values. In a similar vein, Jana Duggar shocked fans lately by disclosing that, despite being single, she has moved out of her parents' house, making a conscious effort to put her parents' strict expectations behind her. The strongest statement of all is the Duggar kids' radio silence on their parents' significant anniversary, demonstrating that sometimes the best way to commemorate a milestone is to let the awkward silence do the talking. As the Duggar family hits a major milestone, Jim, Bob, and Michelle's 40th wedding anniversary, the cracks in their once tight-knit clan are more visible than ever. The adult children's strained relationships with their parents, fueled by controversial religious practices and recent scandals, have become a focal point of tension, with many airing their grievances through books, podcasts, and public actions. Recently, Duggar fans were taken aback to learn that Jim, Bob, and Michelle were marking their 40th wedding anniversary, but seemed to have no congratulations from their kids, at least publicly. Observers were particularly surprised that none of the adult Duggar children posted anything to acknowledge their parents' special day. This led to speculation that either the children had prior commitments or chose not to participate in the celebration publicly. The Duggar family's adult children have increasingly distanced themselves from their parents, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, a situation that seems to stem from a mix of their controversial religious practices and significant personal scandals. The Duggars are known for their strict adherence to the independent Baptist faith, which has deeply influenced their lifestyle and childbearing practices. This includes rigid rules on modesty, courtship instead of dating, and a strong emphasis on gender roles. For instance, daughters are expected to wear long skirts and dresses, avoid wearing pants, and adhere to a conservative dress code that aligns with their faith. The Duggar children have often spoken about how these rules shaped their upbringing, and several have shared that these expectations led to feelings of repression and conflict. The family's estrangement has been further exacerbated by several high-profile scandals involving Jim, Bob, and Michelle's eldest son, Josh Duggar. In 2015, Josh's past abuse of his sisters came to light, leading to significant backlash. It was revealed that, as a teenager, Josh had been inappropriate with several of his sisters and a family friend. This revelation not only tarnished the family's public image, but also raised serious questions about their handling of the situation and the subsequent cover-up. The situation worsened in 2021 when Josh Duggar was arrested and convicted on charges related to crimes against minors, specifically for possession of child sexual abuse material. He was sentenced to over 12 years in federal prison, and his last-ditch effort at appealing the conviction was recently overturned. Jill Duggar has openly confirmed that her interactions with her parents are now limited, reflecting a strained relationship likely rooted in her departure from the family's conservative norms and her public critiques of their practices. Similarly, Jana Duggar recently surprised fans by revealing that she has moved out of her family home, despite remaining unmarried, signaling a clear attempt to distance herself from her parents and their rigid expectations. The Duggar children's radio silence on their parents' big anniversary is the loudest statement of all, proving that sometimes the best way to celebrate a milestone is to let the awkward silence do the talking. Jim, Bob, and Michelle Duggar get snubbed by kids on 40th wedding anniversary. Michelle and Jim Bob Duggar became famous for having a supersized family containing 19 kids. All of them first starred in 19 Kids and Counting and later Counting On. But one of their sons ended up committing such a crime that it shocked the whole nation. Josh Duggar was guilty of possessing CSAM, and their reputation was tarnished. There has also been a documentary about the Duggars and their being followers of IBLF, exposing their toxic ways further. Hence, the parents don't really share a good bond with their kids because of all such controversies. It seems like Duggar News followers got proof of that. That's because Jim, Bob, and Michelle recently celebrated their 40-year wedding anniversary and got no love from their kids. Jim, Bob, and Michelle Duggar have become one of the most controversial couples from the reality TV world. Things took a drastic turn when their son Josh Duggar became a convicted felon for possessing CSAM. Since then, many of their kids, especially their daughters, began sharing the injustices they had to deal with in their house. Most of it had to do with their strict IBLF teachings. Jim, Bob, and Michelle Duggar have become one of the most controversial couples from the reality TV world. Things took a drastic turn when their son Josh Duggar became a convicted felon for possessing CSAM. Since then, many of their kids, especially their daughters, began sharing the injustices they had to deal with in their house. Most of it had to do with their strict IBLF teachings. Jill is another one of the Duggar siblings who exposed a lot of atrocities that went on in the household while growing up.